Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes. Your co-hosts, Jami Albright and Sara Rosette, couldn't be more different. In fact, they're a study in contrasts. However, despite all of their differences, they agree that sharing what they wish they'd known, both the good and the bad, is the key to moving forward. Let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sara Rosette.
And I'm Jami Albright. And today we have an interview with Pamela Fagan Hutchins.
Yes.
And it is awesome.
Oh my goodness. There is so much information in this. And she really laid out in detail what she's done to turn her career around. And she gave us links to her tracking spreadsheet for ads. And she talked about ads. Just so much information in great detail. So right. I think it'll be really good.
Yeah, people need to buckle up because there is a lot of information. And the thing is that Pamela, it's not like she had a bad career. She's just breathed really strong new life into the one she had. So
and it wasn't like
some tweaks. Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't like, I just wrote more books. That wasn't her thing. She completely changed her strategies. Yeah. And so it was really good.
Yeah.
So that's coming up.
Yeah.
What have you been doing this week?
I'm working on my edits. I actually finished them today. I'm reading through the book and then I will send it back to my editor because there were a few sections I had to rewrite. Wasn't like I had to drastically change things. I just had to add some stuff and I had taken some stuff out that I decided to put back in. And, so she's going to look at it again for me because, me and grammar, we're not always on speaking terms. But it was good. It's good. And we just finished recording an interview with Craig Martell and he was talking about using a developmental editor, but also just taking a story and really kind of continuing to chop at it until it's that great story. And that's what I'm really hoping these last couple of weeks have been for me. Time will tell. But yeah, I mean, I feel good about it. But I've also been watching this cool show, and it's not for everybody. It's called Dead Still. You can watch it on Amazon, but it's about a photographer who photographs the dead in Victorian Ireland. And interestingly enough, I had just read an article a month or so ago about this, that back during that time, people would take pictures of their dead relatives. Loved ones. And they're not in the coffin. Like they're sitting up. They're with the dog. They're with the rest of the family. They're with the toy, if it's a child, because they didn't, they just didn't have photography like we have it now. And so they would do that. And so I was so fascinated by it. I started watching it one night, and the first episode, he's talking to this woman and fixing her hair, and then they show her face and she's clearly dead. And it kind of creeped me out, and I was like, I can't watch it. I want to watch it, but I can't watch it. So a few days will go by and I gird my loins and I get back in there, and I have just enjoyed it. It's such a good show. It's just so interesting, and there's a mystery and everything, but it's just really good characters and stuff. Yeah,
that is awesome. I think I saw a preview for that, maybe on Instagram somewhere, and I think somebody compared sort of the feel of it to like a Castle and Beckett type feel. I don't know.
A little bit, but it's the photographer has a niece and then he has an assistant. So it's kind of the three of them, but it's just, I mean, parts of it are delightful and then parts of it are just creepy as can be, but not, I don't know. But it's also very historically accurate in that.
Yeah, that's how the
like a lot of the pictures that you see of back during that time, probably at least one person in there was dead. I mean, that's
It's
what I
just
read in this
so
article. Yeah, it's
interesting.
so crazy. Like their eyes are open. It's just
So weird.
but it's good. And then I
So
just finished
go ahead.
watching another show that I really liked. It was set in the 1870s. I kind of like that time period in Ireland. But I just realized there's only one season. I finished the
Oh,
season last night, and there's only one season, and it was done back in 2016. So there's not another season, and
oh.
I hate that. I really need to be careful and watch, check that out before I start watching something because I get really invested. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and that's how our readers feel. Like if we leave them hanging, like if we've written 2 books of the trilogy, they're like,
exactly.
"Where's the rest?"
Exactly. So what's going on with you?
Well, I have no entertainment to talk about this week, but I'm enjoying the beautiful weather. We're having like 4 or 5 days of no humidity in Houston. It is amazing. So I'm not even going to write today. I'm going to go out and go for a walk because it won't be like this again for like 4 months.
Funny story. Yesterday, our air conditioner, it was running and it cut off, but it kept blowing. And my husband was so worried that because we just had this air conditioner put in and so worried that something had happened. And he looked it up and he came into my office and he said, funny thing, that's built into the system, but it only happens on non-humid days. So we've never had that. We've never experienced it.
What is that? We don't know what that is.
Not here in Houston, we don't. So
not in June. That's true.
That's funny.
Yeah. So enjoying that, the nice weather. And I was also, one just kind of informative thing, I was going to mention this new company, this new thing is launched called Authors AI. And I've been part of it and I got to see kind of got to try it out. And you can run a manuscript through and it gives you a report. And it's really cool. It's got things like about pacing, word choice. But I'll put a link in the notes if anybody wants to check it out.
So that's Alexandra Torrey. She's on the executive committee of that. And we had her on the podcast and we're going to have her back hopefully to talk about this.
So it might be something like if you can't afford a developmental editor, it might be something you could use, or if you have a lot of books and you write really quickly, which Jami and I don't have this problem, but if you want to run a whole bunch of them through and kind of see how they're going, then, you could use it for that. So it's just really interesting new technology.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I think that's great. And I think we should get on to the show with Pamela because, like I said, lots of information.
Oh my goodness. All right, here we go.
All right.
So today we have Pamela Fagan Hutchins with us. Pamela is a wannabe barrel racer, afraid of going fast, an eater of ribeye, a rescuer of dogs, a fangirl podcaster, and an author of USA Today best-selling mysteries. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, we're so glad you're here. So why don't we get started and you tell us what genres you write and how did you get into writing?
Well, I write mostly mystery, but really in the thriller suspense mystery space, I move around with a romantic element, and I like to think somewhat of a supernatural element. I like to include things that are either religious or that are ghostly, that bring in the things that we believe in that we can't see. And so in other words, I'm multi-genre, all packaged into each book, which I think is ultimately why I chose an indie path because I didn't neatly fit in any one space on a bookshelf. Was that what you asked me? I've already forgotten.
Yes. And how did you get into writing?
Oh, yeah, that other part. How did I get into writing? I've kind of always been a writer in secret. My third grade teacher told my parents I'd be a novelist when I grew up. And I said, yuck, I don't want to write books. I want to read them. But she was right. And I've since gone back and had dinner with her and given her a stack of books and said, thank you for planting the seed. But it just stuck. It just always was how I expressed myself, was through the written word. And I had a college boyfriend who told me that I made up drama, that I was overly dramatic. So I kind of practiced for a long time.
I have some drama.
A time or two as well.
That is great. Well, what was your first big success?
I got really lucky as an indie writer, and my first book, my first novel, Saving Grace, right out of the gate, like in the first week, I'd made every cent that I put into it. And I was thinking, wow, this may be, like really easy. Dare I say easy? Of course, that all fell apart, practically overnight. But for the first giddy few months, I thought it was going to be just, a thrill ride.
Yeah. So when was that?
That was in November of 2012.
Okay.
Okay. What do you wish you'd known about writing and craft?
I think the thing that now sitting here 8 years later that would have saved me the most heartache as a writer, a series writer of suspense thriller mystery, was if I'd really known how important it was not to just look at what I wrote as one book at a time, but to look at character arcs over series and plan out series before I started writing, because I really at times have had to back myself into connecting my series. And I think it's worked, but it's been a lot of work.
Yeah, that is hard. And I wish I'd done the same thing.
Yeah, that's why I wrote a short little book on how to write a series now that I've kind of figured it out in my brain, because I didn't know that either. And there's not a lot out there about writing a series. There's a lot about how to write a good single standalone book. So tell us a little bit more about how do you plan now your complete series?
I do. And for a long time, I was writing a single point of view mysteries with female protagonists, and I liked to do trilogies because I really looked at it as a 3-act play, if you will. It was a character arc that extended over 3 books. I have started doing some multi-point of view and extending that longer. You can just, it's so much easier to extend a series longer with multiple points of view. God bless Janet Ivanovich and Sue Grafton, but it's hard to stay fresh for single point of view, especially first person, for that many books. And I have also just finished outlining a 10-book series, and I'm almost through with the first one. It's still romantic mystery, but it's almost romantic suspense in that it's a male-female alternating point of view. So as I've gone along, I like to think I've gotten smarter and smarter about planning ahead. And even if I don't end up writing these whole series, I think I'll do much better in the pieces of it I do complete because of the planning. With books, and I like to think I write character driven, but with plot driven genres where you're needing a good tight plot that propels a book along, I just think planning is a really important part. And when you add into that the series element, for me, it saves me. I mean, it cuts my time. I want to say that by now it's cutting my time in half, right?
Oh, wow.
When you really look at a series, but that's extending over several books.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
My current book was going to be a standalone. Then I decided, no, it's going to be a 3-book series. So I've had to I haven't released it yet. And I'm even, going through my editor's edits and fixing those, but I'm making notes that I need to go in and plant things in this book to carry on to the next book, and then even the next book before I put this first one out, because I don't want to get in that situation that I did with the other one.
I even started doing, I've done this for several books, and then I stopped doing it, but I'm going to do it again, I think, in the future. Writing multiple books at once before I moved forward to make sure when I had a continuing element that I really nailed it down, because it is a heartbreaker when it's 2 years later and you're like, I just need to change just one little super important thing.
Yes, exactly.
And it's in the hands of, however many people it's in, and you're like,
you can't go back. Once you published it, you I guess you could and just redo the whole thing, republish the book. But I did the same. I did go back and fix things in book 1. And I was like, oh, this will work so much better if I change the year that it comes, the year it's set. So I think there's some advantages if you can if you can be patient and wait out the release.
Exactly. And so after I experimented with that, I thought, okay, well, that's really a lot of deferred gratification, for everyone involved in the process, to wait sequentially for you to finish however many books you're going to do. But I started doing, I want to say her name is it Libby Hawker, who does that pants or no pants, the book.
Take off your pants. Yeah.
Take off your pants. And I really started that really rigorous, planning and plotting, where I'll have, 15 pages of outline and beats and everything. And that has somewhat replaced that for me. It's almost as good. Not quite.
Mhm.
It's almost as good. Saves some heartache.
That's great.
That's great.
What do you wish you knew about marketing?
That I think I wish that I knew that it would require so much courage. I feel like for me that marketing, especially with online advertising, is kind of like walking into a casino and saying, I'm putting it all on number 6, or run, whatever it is. You can tell I don't gamble, but that's how I feel every day with the online advertising. So if you extrapolate that over the whole 8 years, I wish that I'd known what I know now about read through and sell through and how to value a book and a series so that you can know how aggressive you can be in what you spend and still ensure that there is, if there's ever going to be, a positive return, a net income. Because for me, it's all about how much is the book at the beginning of the series worth to me? Is it $5? Is it $10? Is it $15? How long is your series? And does that equate to a net income? And I calculate both every day. And I spend 30 minutes a day just putting together my numbers every day and then rejiggering, fooling with, messing with my ads every single day. And now I make money. But before, when I didn't really understand those two concepts, I was constantly underbidding. Underbidding what the books were worth. And as a result, you just lose more and more and more because you lose traction. So anyway, It's probably a complicated answer. It's a lot of what I teach and talk about in ads classes and retreats. And it's hard to boil down without drinking my full cup of coffee into a simple answer.
Right. No, I agree. I think that, I can afford to lose a little money on my first book because of my read through. And if you don't know that, then you turn off ads that are making you money in the long run, or you don't, like you said, bid enough to even get your ad to turn on or work the way it needs to work. So, yeah, exactly. I think that's really important. What assumptions did you make at the beginning of your career, and looking back, did they turn out to be right or wrong?
I think at the very beginning, before I'd published anything, I made an assumption that I was a big loser if I didn't find an agent and go the traditional route, and that I would not succeed. And, that very quickly for me was dispelled. Of course, it's been like a roller coaster. There are the lean times and there are the gravy times. But so much has changed that even the way I felt about myself and the way I felt that others looked at me, I think, has changed dramatically until, but don't get me wrong. If somebody came along and offered me a bajillion dollars for my series, I'd sell it in a hot minute, because that would be really cool. But as it is, I have learned to find a lot of satisfaction in the journey and in the relationships with peers, and not care as much about what people thought, and just enjoy the fact that people are reading my books and enjoying my books, and quit thinking about that whole paradigm that I bought into way back in the beginning. And I'll say I didn't try to go traditional for very long. My husband knew that I was an entrepreneur at heart and said, I'll help you. You go for it. You're going to be really unhappy if somebody else is controlling anything in your life. Yeah. I've tried. It doesn't work. I've never regretted it. It's been hard, but getting past that perception that was in my mind up front may have been the hardest part.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but you did a workshop for us at the Northwest Houston RWA, and listening to you kind of was the final nail in the coffin for me of even thinking about going traditional. I had heard and spoken with Roxanne St. Clair, who was
killing it.
Yeah, killing it.
But also had been traditional.
Yes, and saying don't go traditional, and I was like, okay, but that's easy kind of for her to say. It wasn't until after I heard you that I was like, okay, yeah, this is the route. And I've never even tried. Well, no, I've really never tried traditional. So,
and you've killed it. I mean, and have you been happy with it?
Yes, very happy. I'm sort of the same way. If somebody tried to tell me what to do, it would not be good. Because on the outside, I'm very compliant, but on the inside, I'm standing up the entire time somebody tells me to sit down. So, yeah. So but thank you for that, because it was very eye opening, and I just that was kind of the final thing I needed to push me over. So.
Okay, so I'll tell you that I loved meeting you. I remember you vividly because you I hadn't read a word you'd written, but your personality just sparkled and your confidence. And then I read your first novel, and I was just so pleased. I was just like, she's going to do so well.
That's great. Well, thank you.
So funny. It was so funny.
Yeah. Well, it was fun, and I don't think that book would have sold, because it's just not what traditional publishers are looking for. So, but it did well for me, so that's really great. So have you ever made a mistake that turned out to be a good thing?
I look at the whole package of what's happened with a lot of mistakes in it. And I don't know if I'd change anything, because it all led to where I am now. Mm-hmm. But I mean, from day one, there was mistakes. In the very beginning, when I said that first giddy month of having my first novel out, and it was like money hand over fist. It was, mid early Amazon Kindle days, and I was in KDP Select, but I had my books that I had put it wide, and then I decided to go pick KDP Select. And I learned that with aggregators, it's really hard to make changes, pull your books down, make price changes, etc. I'm a neophyte. I didn't know that. And I got the takedown, and we're going to, take your children away from you, and all the things that Amazon sends you when you've violated their terms of service without knowing it or meaning to. And I took them seriously. I didn't realize that was a shot across the bow. I was like, oh God, I have to get out of KDP Select because I can't get these other people to take it down. Mm-hmm. All that money I was making disappeared overnight. I went from making all this money to nothing, because I didn't understand how tough it was, timing and things to deal with aggregators. And aggregators have their place, and I think they're great. But you just really have to know how to work with them if you're going to be working promotions and price promotions and things where you have to make rapid changes. And it really messed me up. It really cost me a lot of money.
Right. And tell us what an aggregator is for our listeners who aren't familiar with that term.
An aggregator is a service that takes your ebook or audiobook aggregators as well, or even now they're starting to get into print, but they take your book, and instead of you having to manage it across multiple retail sites, it pushes it out there for you so that you can just manage the asset in one place, the price, the description, the metadata, the cover, etc., all in one place. And if you're if you're trying to publish wide across, say, 7 different platforms, that can save you so much time, especially as you add additional books. If you have 18 books across 7 platforms and you're trying to make real-time changes, which, by the way, I think is one of the huge benefits of being an indie author. If I want to change my metadata, or if I want to add something to the back of my book, I don't wait 3 years for the next release to do that. I do that day. Well, an aggregator makes that really feasible for especially a wide distributed author. But you do have the lag time between when you make a change, when the aggregator sends it to the retail sites, when they process those changes, and that varies across different platforms. And so you just have to learn to really manage that.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, what about the opposite? Have you ever had something that you thought was just an amazing, wonderful idea, and then you tried it and it turned out to not be so great?
Just about that again, I just look at it and I think every day. But I thought that I would do translations of my books, because I thought, wow, I'm so lucky they're doing so well in English versions. And it'd be so cheap to go say to Babel Cube, or how do you say that? Babel Cube?
Sounds good.
Babel Cube, I think, yeah.
So Babel Cube, and I'll do some royalty split deals, and I'll work with some translators. Not only was that really challenging because the quality is difficult to vet because you don't speak the language, but I haven't made cent one off those deals. I mean, I've made a few cents, but it wasn't worth the time, and yet I went. Back in the days when there were a few companies that were trying to give Amazon a run for their money with with Kindle Unlimited. A company went into it called Palladium. They're a Danish company, and they were doing a all-you-can-eat, all-you-can-read service.
Mm-hmm.
So I put my books in, and apparently they did well there. And so when they closed down the service, they said, well, we publish women's fiction in Denmark. Can we translate your book? And will you let us publish it there? And I've been trying to work with international publishers for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And they translate it to Danish, and I make decent money off of my Danish translations. So I'm not saying translations for an indie can't work, but they didn't work for me with Babel Cube. And you have some legal risks there as well, because there are countries where if you let a translator translate your book, they own the copyright. So you have some risks as well as
isn't Germany one of those?
Yeah, that's what I think. And I say
think
that
so too. Or it was that way, like in 2016, I think.
And they're supposed to be a great market. Don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't sell much there, but they're supposed to be a great market. But the risk associated with it, to me, just made me back away from the whole thing and say, okay, one of these days when I'm picked out of obscurity and given $10 million for my body of work, they could do that for me.
Right.
That's going to happen.
But you're not the only one. You are not the only one we've heard say that on the show, or that we've heard say that, on other podcasts, that they really thought that would be the thing. And they were either too far, they were just a little ahead of the curve, or too far behind the curve. And then the whole issue of, not speaking the language and not knowing how to market because you don't speak the language. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Do you have the right cover for that geographic market?
Right.
Like for instance, my Danish publishers, just like they would with I'm going to put big air quotes around my head because I'm not traditionally published with a real author, gave me a new cover over there in Denmark and things like that. And did things that made it sell well in that culture. And that's a lot of work for an indie.
It is. And it's not always cost effective. I mean, it's ROI. I mean, a lot of what I do is about the ROI, and it's some things sound really fun. Like I got an email and asked, it's a reputable company. They do these boxes, and they wanted 200 books. And they would pay me for them, but it wasn't a whole lot, but I would still make a little bit of money, but then I have to ship them. So when I look at the whole thing, yes, it is exposure, but the ROI isn't there for me. And at this point in time, I got to look at my bottom line, because it's not work. Just because something is fun and kind of cool and flattering doesn't mean it's something you should do.
Absolutely. And when you think about what's really hard for people to embrace writers that are new to indie publishing, it's this exact conversation we're talking about, which is half your time is the business of writing, half your time is writing. And that business of writing is just like another business would be. It's all about the ROI, how you spend your time, how you spend your money, what you say yes to, what you say no to. Is it driving net income, and how much?
Yeah. And the wisdom is being able to figure out when it's worth it and when it's not. And that's why we're also
because you don't have a crystal ball to know ahead of time. It gets back to that, put it all on red, number 6 or whatever.
I know.
Yeah, the roulette wheel spinning.
Yeah, it feels like that a lot. Okay, well, in the email that you sent us, you said that you had a game-changing year. And we were talking earlier about how things had changed for you. So talk to us a little bit about what you've done recently to win at the casino.
Exactly. So for the last couple of years, I've been doing really well. And in 2015-16, I decided that I needed to write more. I'd bring employees in, and I would turn more and more of what I did over to other people. I had 3 employees, and I did. And it was nice. I had a more balanced life, but more and more things were getting away from me, and my ROI was slipping. And in fact, I was going negative some years. It was a nice tax write-off against my husband's income, but that's not what I was looking for. And so last year, my husband and I decided that because we want him to retire, that I could no longer run negative, but that we would take one last year where we put it all on the table and tried everything else I could think of that might make it work in our current paradigm. And so I really spent a lot of money on online ads with people that did them for me. It was a dismal failure. And so at the end of this year, I said, okay, this is hard, but everybody's fired. And I'm going to take it all back, all of it. And I have, 30 books now between fiction and nonfiction and box sets and et cetera. So how am I going to manage that? Well, and I said, I'm going to learn how to do these ads, and I'm going to do them better than anybody in the world, damn it. So I did that. And at the same time, I published a book that I hadn't planned to write. Totally. I'd written 2 novels that were almost done. I had a third that was partway done because I was having a little bit of multiple author personality disorder last summer. And I couldn't decide when I wanted to write. But then my dad got sick, and he was given 3 months to live. And I just didn't know what to do with that emotion. And I said, well, I want to write a book with my dad as the hero that is a book that he would want to read. Well, what does he like to read? And how can I weave all of his magical stories about being a doctor in Wyoming in the 1970s? They're hilarious. Like, the night he gets called in because the vet's out of town and they call him in for a broken leg, and he goes in to x-ray it, and they're like, no, out in the parking lot. He's like, what? And he goes out, and it's a horse in a trailer that, proceeds to try to kill him. But, all those wonderful stories and build it into some kind of mystery, thriller, suspense that's family friendly. And I've been writing single protagonist romantic mysteries, female, very character driven. And so I wrote this book and thought, I'm not even going to publish it because it's going to be inside family jokes. The dang thing has just killed it. I mean, it's just killed it. Awesome. And I've now I'm on the 4th one now. And my dad magically has now been given 3 years. So, we've wonderful. Moved. It feels like this blessing from him. So we had things that came together. We had a new set of readers. We had learning to do ads in a way that have just blown me away. It's like, oh my gosh, you really can make money at these things. I used to read what people said about making money with ads and think, yeah, right. expletive, yeah, right. And because I was making nothing and paying a lot for people to do them for me. And I'm killing it on ads and this book. And, it may or may never not come to anything, but I had an agent that's picked me up and is trying to sell everything I've ever written because of reading that book about my dad. And that may never come to anything, or it may bear fruit. He wants to sell dramatic rights. He says I'm his retirement client, that he wants to retire on the money he makes off of me. Now, that may never happen, but it wouldn't even be a discussion if I hadn't changed everything, because it wasn't just the book. It was learning to do ads, and it was the ad that reached him. And so ads, to me, not only sell books, build readership, create subscribers, create opportunities, help you forge new relationships. They increase your Facebook likes. There's all these different things that they do that are not just dollars and cents on your bottom line, but add to the overall bottom line in ways that are maybe not measurable on that day. So it was a confluence of things. The last thing I did was I gutted my newsletter. I had nearly 20,000 subscribers, but I had terrible open rates, and I had really, really terrible sales on the days I would release newsletters with new releases. And I basically said, y'all deadbeats are out of here. I cut that thing down by 6,000 people on the first cut and said, okay, I'm going to completely redo my onboarding sequence. I'm going to change the way that I do newsletters. And then I did one last change. And that is, I said, who here wants to be an advanced reader for me? And I sent it to all 13,000 of them, said, I'm going to take every one of you that say yes. You're going to get every book I write free from here on out. On your mark, get set, go. And I turned it off after like 3 days because I had nearly 1,000 people. And I was like, oh, shit, what have I done?
Overwhelmed.
I'll never make another dollar because now I'm giving away 1,000 books every time I write one to people that weren't buying 5 when I'd send the newsletter. So this is what happened. Not only did I get a really engaged review team, and I keep cutting that list too. It's like, hey, you didn't post a review, you're out of here. So it's down to, I want to say 500 now, but they're engaged. They leave reviews. And I also tell them, go read it in Kindle Unlimited. If you've got Kindle Unlimited, please don't use this link. And they have been super about that. I didn't know that mattered to you. And oh, wow, I'll do that for you. And not only that, when I release the book, I say, okay, for those of you that just want to do something nice, If you want to buy it, here's the link. You're welcome to, but you never have to pay for it. I sell books to that group. They go back and buy it, and they then become evangelists. So I've gone from having a group of 20 advanced readers to a group of 500 advanced readers, and that's been super. And then my smaller email list is now ROI positive. Now I have a less that I spend giving to MailerLite each month on my newsletter. And I am selling books to them, and they open it and they buy them. And so, as I track it, that's one of, again, my spreadsheets are overwhelming. On one of my spreadsheets, it's tracking, what am I spending and what am I making on my newsletter? And I am positive ROI, and I know that I am. Plus, you have that impact on your rankings by actually getting to move people to do things on the specific day that you release the newsletter and tell them, the day you want to see the sales hit. So it's just been this package that is snowballed. At the beginning of the year, I was like, if I could go from losing money to making $40,000 this year, I'd be happy. Mm-hmm. Well, right now I'm tracking toward $150,000, and that's net income based on just annualizing my average. And there's no reason to think I'm not going to hit the numbers. It's growing every day. And that's just a huge game changer.
I feel like that's like a little mini masterclass right there. There's just so much good information in that. So people will be rewinding to listen to this section. I know that.
Yeah. I have because of my onboarding sequence, I have about 200 people on my advanced reader team. And I've heard people say, well, those are my good readers. I don't want to give books away. But if you look, I have, like the last book I released, before the ebook came out, I had 50 reviews already on that is huge. That makes a giant difference.
If somebody said, would you pay $500 to have 50 reviews on the day your ebook published, and there was a way to do that legitimately, we would all say, heck yeah. Yeah. I mean, the value of that, getting that for free is huge. And yay you. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I just think that it's important because then the thing about reviews, because it's weird, it's like one begets another. Like once you get a certain number, then they just start rolling. And I don't, other than my advanced review team, I don't do anything for reviews. But the book one has 699 reviews. So if anybody wants to review book one, go ahead. So I'd like to hit 700. But
I have a quick question about the ads.
Yeah, I was going to ask Ed.
Yeah, I know. But we have some follow-ups apparently with this question. So tell us, I know people will want to know, what type of ads you do, BookBub, Facebook, Amazon. How you kind of sort out your time, and how much time do you spend working on ads compared to writing, things like that.
Well, I do make sure that every day, no matter what, that when I finish eating lunch, that's my writing time for the rest of the day. So that's kind of sacred. I don't write well in the morning, so this works. I mean, I found that even when I had time to write in the mornings, I wasn't doing it. So the only thing is I'm getting fat because I should be exercising in the mornings. But so in the mornings, I do the business of writing, whether that's my podcast or whatever it is. There's a bazillion things. I spend first about 30 minutes gathering my numbers. I have a big tracking sheet, and if anybody that wants it, I make that public. It's case sensitive, but it's bit.ly, bit.ly / capital PFH, capital T, and then all the rest is lowercase. It's the word tracker. So it's RACKER. So if you want to look and see how I track things, it's PFH tracker with PFHT capitalized on the end of bit.ly. And so I spend about 30 minutes gathering numbers because I believe that good decisions are driven by good data. And then I look at how my ads are performing. Now, what ads do I use? I use everything, but I use them fit for purpose. BookBub I tend to use when I'm doing a price promotion, and I use it in support of doing promotions with the online promoters that send the announcements of deals to their subscriber lists. And I only work with ones that do it by genre because I want to make sure that they're good quality sales and not worthless downloads. But I also have learned that I can use BookBub for full price books. I've got an ongoing BookBub ad that runs every single day for an ebook that's $4.99 and returns a positive ROI every single day without fail. I have never found another that I do that has consistently done that. But playing around with it and on the back end of a promotion, I found one that worked. And so I do it. In fact, it is my most profitable ad, but there's a limit to what I can spend. You know, it's the size of the readers of that particular author that I'm promoting toward. So that's what I use BookBub for primarily. I did also experiment with using it to support audiobook sales for a Chirp deal. Chirp is Findaway and BookBub's kind of collaboration where it's BookBubs and they promote to it. You get deals with them, but you get into it through Findaway. And I couldn't tell whether there was any ROI there. I couldn't figure out how to track it. I don't believe in blindly spending money, so I turned it off. What do I use Amazon for? I use Amazon for my daily ongoing, I want to stimulate Kindle Unlimited reads, and I want to stimulate sales on Amazon. They're everybody's biggest piece of their single biggest piece of their pie. And I just don't believe that there's anything organic happening on Amazon anymore, that you have to do something to make the books move there, whether it's your promotions and your price discounts and things that you're also driving with BookBub and online promoters, or whether it's just day to day. So I have ads running for full price books and series all the time. I run category ads. I run ASIN ads. I run keyword ads. I run automatic ads. Every kind that can be run in the product category, I do. I don't do lock screen ads. I've never been able to make money with those. So full price books and discount books. Then over on Facebook, I do something maybe different than I would recommend for a lot of people up front. You definitely can find that on Facebook. You can advertise discount and free books and do pretty well if you can target your interests right and get a good creative image and good copy. I think it's really important to remember that it all comes down to testing every element of that to see what works, not what you think works, but what the clickers, the people out that are seeing it, think works. But, for a while I was having trouble translating that into ongoing full price book ads. And if I don't have ongoing full price book ads, I would not be making the money that I am. So, I really experimented with it and discovered which of my books worked, which ads worked and which books worked that consistently returned a positive ROI. And the reason I like Facebook for full price books is because it's the easiest of the three platforms to scale, meaning I can increase my spend and the amount of books that I sell is roughly commensurate with the same return on investment that I was getting at a lower spend. I have a lot of trouble getting Amazon to spend more money. And if they do, my sales fall apart. BookBub, you're limited again by the size of the audience, the size of the readers for whoever you're targeting. And so the scaling there is really, really tough, really poor. But on Facebook, you can scale the hell out of that sucker. And the bottom doesn't usually fall out until you've exhausted your creative and your copy with that audience. And even then, you've got things you can do to try to expand that audience or to do a lookalike or things that can potentially explode the size again and let you try to replicate that success. So every single day, people get really scared when I tell them how much I spend on ads. I probably spend $400 to $500 a day on ads, but I return that such that I'm making, I think right now my return on investment for the year, net income wise, I'll tell you exactly what it is. Year to date, it's 89%. So, you spend $500, you return 89%. I'd like it to be higher, but it's still pretty dang good. It supports making money. That means you have to have money to put in the pipeline, right, in the beginning. But $5 is enough. Spend $5, wait till you return that money, and then spend $10, and then spend $15, et cetera. It grows. I didn't spend $500 at first. I spent $25. And at the end of the day, you have to also be thinking about, you want to build to where you've got a positive daily return, and yet are investing enough in the pipeline that your future return continues to grow. Because if the numbers are telling you that you're going to make money 3 months from now, and you're not able to invest in that, that's a heartbreaking thing, right? When you're like, oh, I've got great ROI, but I don't have the cash to invest. So you just have to keep building toward it. It's an advanced topic. And as you could tell, I could go on all day. And I do retreats and we talk nothing but ads for days. But I use them fit for purpose. but I use all three every day.
Very good. Yeah. I'm with you. BookBub, I've said this more than once, that I've gotten it to work a few times. I have one author that really does work well for me. But for the most part, I run those when I'm too lazy to go out in the front yard and light a bunch of money on fire, because
I love that.
it just seems to not work. But the one author that I do have, she works great. And even with full price books, she works great because she's she's a KU author. And so, I get a lot of KU downloads from when I run books to her. But yeah, it's just.
I wish I could find a KU author that worked for me to use in BookBub. The one I have is a wide author, and so it doesn't drive reads, and that kills me. It's a positive ROI, but it doesn't necessarily drive the reads.
Yeah. Well, and then Facebook. Yeah, for me, Facebook's game changer. It was just a game changer for me.
You know what's funny about Facebook is I find that because people see the ads, they think all I do is sit around on Facebook because they see these ads and they're like, "You're just on there all the time." I'm like, my money is.
Yes.
You're virtually present.
I'm virtually present.
Well, tell us about your writing retreats.
Sure. So they used to be live, but I don't know that we'll ever go back to live. I have these great houses, one in Texas between Houston and Austin. And I started them there because I moved away from Houston, and I used to be president of the Houston Writers Guild and have critique groups in my house several nights a week. And I thought, well, I want to stay plugged into the community, and I want to continue to have people learn from what I do wrong so that I don't repeat my mistakes through exponentially through a bunch of other people. And they were a success. And so I thought, okay, I'll start having them in Wyoming when I'm here too, because that house is even cooler. And that was really cool. And then COVID came along. So what I found is most popular is two different retreats that I do. And one of them, I actually have one spot left in my June 24th through 26th virtual retreat that's on, it's basically on advertising. It's advanced promoting and advertising. I give people a lot of materials after they sign up ahead of time so they can build enough base by reading ahead that they're ready for it when they get to me. 3 days goes a lot faster than you think it will on topics this complex. But I try to make it affordable, $600 for the 3 days. And we just go full tilt into advertising BookBub and into Amazon ads. But in doing so, we look at all the things that I think you have to have in place to make those successful, like having a really good subscriber opt-in list for your newsletters and a good onboarding sequence and a really good grasp on using affiliate links and other things that you can do to help you measure data so that you can tell what the ROI is on your ads. There's math involved. I'm sorry. And then we finished the workshop on the last day. We synthesize, those pieces, talk about the online promoters, how to build particular types of campaigns, single book discounts, books that are free, box set promotions, how to make a bestseller run, things like that. So how do you synthesize all the different pieces, and, what does that cost you? How do you decide what to spend? How do you stack a promotion and things like that? So it's for people that are ready to talk about, okay, I'm day one, I've got my $5. How do I spend it? To, I want to get, tons better than you, Pamela, and I want to spend whatever capital investment it takes to continue to return a really good return on your investment. And I keep it small because, it's too much on these screens if you've got too many people. So I limit it to 5 participants. So 5 people and me. And their brains explode over 3 days and in a good way. It's great for me. I always learn something new and I come out really super fired up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So do you do any craft retreats, or is it all on marketing?
I do. I do 2 kinds of craft retreats. I do one that's just finish that book, right? It's for people I get a lot of people that are not first-time novelists, but they're stuck and they just want that injection. And we read from each other's work, and we do things to help ensure that what we're writing is good and try to, model the process of how do you get from Once Upon a Time to the End with a Good Book, or the best book that you can. And we talk about different ways to improve it as you go. And I critique 50 pages and then sit down with them during the retreat virtually now and work on that. And then I do a crime fiction where we talk about how to write crime fiction. So
that's awesome.
It's fun. Yeah. And it keeps me sharp. If I do one of those every so often, I stay sharp. And if I don't, I get all introverted and I turtle and pull my head in and, and hide. And it's super good for me. And I find the things that I do to network with other authors return to me in ways, again, like I was mentioning earlier about, the whole idea of advertising and how so much of what I get from it is above and beyond that day's bottom line. It's the same thing with retreats. Those relationships become later people that tell me when I'm on their podcast years later, I saw you in a workshop and, I did this because, you were the nail in my coffin with traditional publishing. Those moments that you get and become people that blurb your books or that you do box sets with or, all kinds of fabulous things. And that's harder and harder to get as we become more dispersed and remote from each other.
Yeah, it is.
Well, tell us a little bit about your podcast, because you specifically podcast for readers.
I do. I podcast for readers, and I try to focus in on books that have the kind of female characters I want to read, that are not cardboard cutout characters. Now, I have a personal bent towards suspense, thriller, mystery. So I'd say that more often than not, that it is those authors. But I have a lot of good women's fiction, literary fiction. I do a little fantasy. I try to squeeze in genres that I don't read normally. And that's been so cool. Like when I first started doing this, I do it with a network. I do it with Authors on the Air, Global Radio Network. Pam Stack is the producer. She said, we'll get you anybody you want on your show except Janet Ivanovich. She doesn't need to do shows. I was like, okay, all right. And at first I was letting her do my inviting, but then I thought, I'm just going to write to some of these authors, which some of them it's hard to get hold of, but I'm going to write to some of them. And nobody ever says no. So, my favorite author ever is Craig Johnson. Little cute story about Craig Johnson. He's the Longmire guy, right? The Netflix Longmire series. He lives about 30 miles from me here. And when we first bought this house, we live in an old B&B here in Wyoming. And we actually do run it in the summers as an Airbnb. I do not cook breakfast for people, but we fill the whole the upper 3 stories with people. And the owners, when they sold it to us, when they found out I was a mystery writer, said, well, Craig Johnson and his wife stayed here when they were property hunting, when they first moved to the area so many years ago. And Rita Mae Brown stayed here. And they started naming all these mystery writers. And I was like, honey, I need that house. That's my house. That's good mystery vibes. But I contacted Craig Johnson. He doesn't know me at all, and say, you want to do a show? And he says, sure. Can we do it in person? I said, yeah. That'd
Absolutely.
Be super awesome, Craig. So we went to a location that appears in his books, the Occidental Bar in Buffalo, Wyoming, and sat down at 10 in the morning on a Friday, which, by the way, is a drinking hour in Wyoming. So there were people in there, and did a video cast show live in the bar. And people were watching the show on their phones and their laptops as they watched their show while we did it. And it's things like that you can't put a value on. Yeah. Pick up the phone and call, pick up my fingers, find Robert Dugoni on the internet and say, hey, Bob, we were once on a panel together but didn't meet, but I'm sure you remember me. And he's like, yeah, cool. He came on the show and he blurbed my next book, and it just cool things like that. And I'm a fangirl. These are people I read. So when I get them on the show and I'm happy and excited to talk about them, or when I ask my readers, who do you want me to have on? And they go, Sara. And I reach out to Sara and say, hey, you don't know me, but my readers do. So come be on my show. Yeah. It's so much fun.
It is. That's so cool.
Awesome.
That's really cool.
But it's also a lot of work. And every single week I say, I'm done with this podcasting. I'm done with it. I haven't quit yet. I'm nearly to 100 shows. Maybe after 100, I'll quit.
Well, you need a podcast wife like I have in Sara, because
she's saying that this morning. I think I'm done with this.
She does a lot, and I try, but I'm not very good at it.
Jami's our people person. and I am the technical detail person.
We do, Sarah. Sarah, will you cheat on Jami and be my
No, I'm maxed out. So you have to tell people the name of your podcast, though, because I don't think we mentioned it.
Wine, Women, and Writing. Although occasionally I cheat on my podcast, and I'll have a writer that writes male protagonists, and I'll call it Mescal Men and Mystery. Then
there we go.
Yeah,
that's the name of it, and you can find it through my website. If you just click on the podcast in the menu in my website, it'll give you the upcoming shows, and I've got some embedded video and audio there so that you can go and find all of them. And if you're trying to pitch, if you're an author and you're thinking, I'd like to pitch to be on that show, there are instructions. There's a click-through link to pitch. But I only do 2 a month, and you do the math. I have to say no to most people, but I'd love to hear from people. I love to.
That's
and
awesome.
If I'm not able to get them on, then maybe I can, put them on in the future or help them in some other way.
That's great. So tell us what you think you've done to set yourself up for success.
I think that number one, I was already an entrepreneur before I went into indie publishing. And so I was never scared of the business side of it. And you really have to be ROI focused, but at the same time, realistic and looking at ROI and maybe saying, I've got a period of investment. How long is my period of investment where, I'm going to capitally invest and may not yet be showing a positive ROI, even 6 months out from now. And then I have a lot of support. My husband, who anyone that follows me on social media wants to vomit every time I mention his name, because we really are a good team and I really do adore him. And he is so integral to my success. He's my storyboard partner, and he has never once said no, even when I had a year where I lost $39,000. And that's in cash, folks. That's in cash. And so he's super. And then the last piece is that I believe that while writing is an art, that it is also a practice and a skill that you can learn to speed up. And that you have to be able to not navel gaze. You have to be able to crank out words. And you have to get to a point where you say, it's okay for me to write the most hideous first draft ever. It will become a good book if I just write it down and have that confidence and that discipline to crank it out. To me, that does not fly in the face of artistic endeavors. That is about the practice and the skill that you marry with the artistic endeavors. And whatever your best speed is, pursue that best speed, because the quicker that you get a book out, the better your ROI is going to be, right? Because you're investing your time. And so I learned to write quickly. At the beginning, that was 1 book every 5 years. And then the next one took 2, and the next one took 1. And then it was like 8 months, 6 months. And now I devote about 4 months to each book in the process. So last year I wrote 4 novels. So I guess that's 3, but I don't want to do that. That hurt. But I had a purpose. I was scared that my dad was going to die before I could finish these 3 books that I wanted to put in his hands. But this year I'm shooting for 4 months.
Very good.
Turn around on each. But I think that that's really super important. And with all those pieces in place, then I was able to pick up different things like learning to capitalize on mailing lists and advertising and things like that. But without those elements, those things would not be as profitable for me.
Right. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Need a good backlist to do some of the strategies that you're doing. So
absolutely. Advertising when you have 1 book is, you said it, Jami. It's like going out in the front yard and saying, I'm going to light this pile of money on fire because I don't have time to go on and do my ads today. With 1 book, it can be super hard to return any money. But when you've got a series, or if you have a backlist of books that are compatible, the same readers will like, you can start to make some money.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
It's been wonderful. Thank you for sharing much with us.
Oh, it's been
really appreciate it.
Super fun to talk to you guys. But what I want to know is, do I talk more than any guest you've ever had, or am I just in the top 3?
You're in the top 3.
But we love it. It's been good information.
And
it's been awesome.
Tell everybody where they can find out about you and your books.
Awesome. I will. PamelaFaganHutchins.com. That Fagan is spelled Fagan and Hutchins is Hutchins. Pamela, I hope you got that one right. And I also have a pretty robust presence. BookBub, Goodreads, Amazon. You can find me there. Or God forbid you're on Facebook, because you'll see me all over the place.
Yeah. Well, and we'll put all of the links, the one for the spreadsheet you were talking, or the,
okay, cool.
We'll put all the links in
it. The retreat is a particular page through my website. And so, people will be able to get to them.
That's awesome. Great.
We'll all be there. And you can find it all on wishidknownthenforwriters.com. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.